that there was not intelligence there shows that Justin Trudeau is mischaracterizing what the United States said. And now what he's trying to do is try to...
Is India really dealing with both these countries, the same issue, but, the way they're balancing it with the U.S. Vis-a-vis the Canadian side? What is your take on that?
The outtake on this is that the Americans realize that there is a nuanced problem. The difference between the Americans and the Canadians seem to be flying by the seat of Justin Trudeau's pants. The Americans recognize the complexity of the issue. This isn't simply a matter of accusing India for political gain. Look, the San Francisco consulate has been attacked twice by Sikh extremists, by Khalistani militants. The Americans understand at this point that the Khalistani militants are engaged in organized crime, and therefore they recognize that not all is as meets the eye. That's why the Indians seem to also be much more willing to trust the American investigation, because the American investigation is much less designed to protect a single prime minister and much more designed to get to the heart of the matter.
Right. Now, give us a sense of things. You've talked to people back in Canada. Why is Trudeau trying to do this? What is he trying to achieve by putting an important bilateral relationship, go through these unprecedented trials time and again? You'd had this year ago, and you see it. You said, when he's in trouble, he tries to do this all over again. What's your take on that?
Look, my take on this is Justin Trudeau is nearing his 9th year in office. When he came into office, there was a lot of optimism that he would be a fresh face. The reason why his popularity has plummeted, and not simply on this issue, is because he has consistently put himself above the interests of Canada. He has consistently showed himself to be a lightweight. And in this situation, what we have is Justin Trudeau, in a fit of pique more than a year ago, decided to spark a diplomatic crisis, and he may honestly have not realized the import of what he was accusing. Well, India stood up for itself and look, the first rule of holes is when you're in a hole, stop digging. And it seems that Justin Trudeau is intent on digging his way to China at this point, simply because he's not going to acknowledge his own mistake, because he's putting his ego above the national interests of Canada.
Right. Now, did you go through the strongly worded statements that were put out by the Indian side? Something that we haven't seen in years from the Indian side. This was like a direct attack on Trudeau. This was a direct and a strongly worded attack on Canada. What do you make of this? Where the Indians are coming from?
Well, look, the Indians have every right to be angry for two reasons. First of all, when I read many of the leaks, and some of the leaks were also published in the Washington Post not too long ago, there was a lot of assumptions made, 2 or 3 degrees of separation. What the Canadians are essentially saying is that this plot goes all the way to the top of the Indian government, because some of the supposed this plot goes to the top of the Indian government because some of those who have conspired are 2 or 3 degrees removed from Prime Minister Modi. Well, you know what? I've done this game before, where I've found that I'm 2 or 3 people removed from the presidents of most countries on earth. That doesn't matter when that doesn't mean that when I get a speeding ticket when I'm driving, that somehow the government of China or the government of Turkey or the government of South Africa is responsible. That's the type of logic we're dealing with. When they don't have the evidence, the Canadians seem to make it up and say, hey, look, we're Westerners. You got to believe us. And that doesn't fly in India, the world's largest democracy. Frankly, it doesn't fly in the global South or anywhere else in the world. It doesn't fly in the United States. That's where the Canadians are making their mistake. But let's look at this from another perspective. From an American perspective, what the Canadians are accusing the Indians of doing isn't much different from what the Pakistanis accused the United States of doing when we killed Osama Bin Laden. And you know what? maybe the question the Pakistanis should have asked is, why were we harboring a master terrorist? And the fact of the matter is, Canada, through initially fraudulent immigration chains, Canada, through initially fraudulent immigration claims and then chain immigration, has set itself up to be a money laundering and terror financing, terror supporting hub. And, you know, many Americans, many Canadians may not understand what the Khalistani movement is. But when you think back on Air Canada, when you think back on Air India 182 back in 1985, this group is potentially as deadly and as vicious as Al-Qaeda. Justin Trudeau needs to be asking, why am I protecting these people?
Right. Now, this all started on Sunday, of course. There have been developments yesterday as well, with Canada reaching out to India, saying that it has evidence against India, and officials have planned the murder of a Canadian citizen, that's a Niger. What do you make of the speed at which the things are unfolding between the two countries? And is there enough substance for Trudeau to say that, we have evidence against India, and why is it not out in the public domain?
This is one of the problems. First of all, one of the frustrations with Justin Trudeau is when he got himself in a corner, he tried to expose American intelligence. Now, as a former consumer of American intelligence, Justin Trudeau's accusations didn't make sense. When the Americans know something ahead of time, we will forewarn the government of an impending assassination. Not just with our friends. We've actually done it with the Iranians before, more than 2 decades ago. What happened in Canada, in Surrey, was that you had what essentially seemed to be a organized crime hit, a Sikh-on-Sikh gang violence episode. And the Americans, after the fact, said, we have a lot of chatter on this. No smoking gun, but you can look through our chatter. Justin Trudeau, as the lightweight he is, said, the Americans are giving us intelligence, with a nod and a wink. If the Americans are if this is coming from American intelligence, it has to be right. That's not the way intelligence works. Basically, if there was any evidence there, the Canadians would have known about it in advance. The fact that there was not intelligence there shows that Justin Trudeau is mischaracterizing what the United States said. And now what he's trying to do is try to get the United States government into a corner to try to defend him. Well, we're not going to do that. That's politicization of intelligence. And that's why the CIA would very much like the Five Eyes to become Four Eyes if Canada is going to play this sort of game. So that's one of the problems. You look at some of the other evidence. Again, it doesn't make sense. So the Canadians are saying that India is controlling the mafia. This is reminiscent of how John F. Kennedy conspiracy theorists said that the mafia and the CIA were working fist and glove with maybe even the Castro administration in order to kill John F. Kennedy. So that doesn't make sense. And then when you actually look at the nitty-gritty, well, if the mastermind of this is in Indian prison, that's another problem we have out there. The Canadians seem to be making an issue whenever Justin Trudeau is in hot political water, and enough is enough. I mean, there's the old parable about the boy who cried wolf. I mean, Justin Trudeau is crying wolf every day. If Canadians don't trust him, why should Indians or Americans?
Trudeau also reached out to the UK Prime Minister yesterday, discussing this issue. Do you expect Trudeau to reach out to the US side? And what is your assessment in the days ahead? How would the US balance this out, considering, you have Canada on one side and India, an important strategic ally?
Well, Justin Trudeau is going to try to hope that politics and diplomatic nicety trump the truth. What he always does is he jumps off a cliff and hopes that his British or American friends will put a big It doesn't work that way. our relations with India are way too important. They're way too bipartisan. They date back to the George W. Bush administration, and they're the only thing that really unites George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump and Joe Biden. That's an amazing relationship. To try to drag that down, to try to burn the house down in a fit of pique, in a Justin Trudeau temper tantrum, isn't mature leadership on the global stage. So what I suspect the Biden administration will do is what we did last time. Say, we have our own ongoing investigation, we're very happy with the Indian cooperation, and perhaps our investigation isn't pointing in the same direction, which the Canadians are claiming theirs is.
Right. In the coming days, we will see an administration change here in the United States, be it Vice President Kamala Harris becoming the president of this country, or former President Trump coming back. What does this really mean for the India-U.S. relationship, especially at a point where there are discussions about these sticky issues like the Khalistani movement?
Well, first of all, when it comes to the American elections, I don't have a horse in this race personally because I'm not particularly a fan of either candidate. But as an analyst rather than an advocate, I worry what a Kamala Harris administration would mean for this issue. On one hand, Kamala Harris will sometimes say, well, I have Indian background. But on the other hand, the problem with Kamala Harris is that her deflection to the progressive base will lead to an unleashing of the worst instincts of the State Department. So what I worry about is while we have more mature leadership with the Biden administration, more seasoned leadership, under a Kamala Harris administration, we could be much more like Justin Trudeau. And that's why I hope that this issue is resolved before Kamala Harris or Donald Trump take their oath of office on January 20th.
All right. There is an important summit going on in the Indian subcontinent. That's the SCO summit. There is no bilateral component between India and Pakistan. An important platform where the talks could move forward. What's your take on this?
Well, what I find unfortunate is whenever there are so many issues in the world today, and whenever we have these multilateral summits, the G20, for example, where this first erupted with Justin Trudeau's accusations, what Canada does and what Justin Trudeau through his ego does is he completely derails the agenda when there are so many more important issues at stake. And that is what is becoming unfortunate. That's what's also causing a great deal of frustration with Justin Trudeau outside of New Delhi. And the fact of the matter is, whenever we try to work on something, whenever the world tries to get together to address trade, to address climate change, there's Justin Trudeau saying, hey, look at me. And, the world's had enough of that.
All right. On the India-Pakistan bilateral, anything on that front?
I don't have anything on that front. On the first question, is there anything you want me to say much more succinctly?